All right, and so now my identity is, hey, that's my son Johan. Esse é meu filho Johan.
Eu preciso do microfone. Eu preciso do relógio para ligar pro meu amigo, porque já são. Já tá tarde.
Ok, querido, o papai está fazendo um vídeo, um momento.
Okay,
so. So, Mark Hollenberg, Montero here. This is Spiritual Judo for Yogi Jesus. Progressive Christianity. Progressive Christianity for multidisciplinary theology and philosophy. So, Sam Harris, right? I just made a series based on the Sam Harris, Chris Hedges debate of 2007, dealing with this pop philosophy nonsense, really, this approach that in which Sam Harris is his major classifications system that he drummed up has to do with the categories of true, whether religion is true, whether religion is useful, and whether attacks on atheism, or that they respond with attacks on atheism, and he's basically ridiculing in all of his, using ridicule as a substitute for legitimate empirical, philosophical, truth-related, truth claim evaluating philosophy, right? Which has the standard philosophical criteria involve whether something is logically coherent and whether it corresponds to reality. And so instead of such tried and true academic philosophical scholarly standards that are in fact the foundations of science, so-called science, which is in fact scientific philosophy, instead of that kind of integrity and that kind of it is integrity. It's basically the sound philosophical approach. Harris is another example of pop philosophy and the abuse of scholarly reputations in the popular arena. And so I had thought of a good way to respond, a good way to provide an analogy, an analogical method, using the method of analogy. I guess it's a kind of reductio ad absurdum, which is an interesting kind of counter. It's a legitimate philosophical issue. It's recognized in philosophical amongst philosophical argumentation, I guess it is, or forms of rhetoric. And it's kind of can be counterposed to stereotyping, which is what Harris does, is one of the things that Harris does, and the other new atheists, in which they confuse certain actions, historical events associated with violence and religion, and try to use that. Therefore, these parts are mixed up in these events, and to say these parts indicate, because these parts and events have religion, therefore all religion is therefore illegitimate, along with other stereotypical reasoning by association, guilt by association, character assassination type smear logic, which is grade school. It's grade school, and also propaganda, of course, because it's a way to manipulate large groups of people, playing on popular prejudices and confusion, in fact, that underlies various kinds of prejudices. So anyway, here I want to get to the fact that he's saying that, well, religious defenders argue that religion is true. Religious defenders argue that religion is useful. Religious defenders argue that in attacks against atheism, how dare they, right? that it's intolerant and elitist. And so Harris standardly refers and responds saying, well, if religion is true, how come there are hundreds of gods, claims to gods? So that one approach can't be true. Religion is useful. Oh, religion can be consoling. Well, but that's not enough to counterbalance. Let me see here. What does he say? We should expect damnation. Consoling isn't enough. Consoling doesn't count as evidence. Right? One of his arguments. And attacks against atheism, that the new atheists are intolerant and elitist. As if religious people aren't intolerant and atheists and elitist. Right? So he's basically arguing there. He's not making an argument. He's actually, well, that would be his argument, that intolerance and elitism are characteristics of people, of religious people, of some religious people, and so therefore it's not an argument. It's his argument. It's his kind of superficial reasoning, specious sophistry, right? So, I thought of three contexts that make interesting analogies. Dentistry is true, useful, and if it were attacking atheism. Nazi doctors, Soviet doctors, and American Tuskegee syphilis doctors and psychotherapy. Psychotherapists, particularly for shell-shock combat veterans and rape counselors. So let's see here. How does this go? So religion says it's true, useful, and attacks atheism, and then he says, but it's false for all these reasons. So we could say, this kind of reasoning then applied to dentists, taking simplistic versions, right? The idea is then taking simplistic caricatures of the enemy, of the adversary, and pretending and feigning or presuming, I guess is the term, presuming, it's a conceit, it's a form of conceit, presuming with the airs of philosophical scholarship to refute, right? Because we're talking about refutation. And instead of engaging in argumentation, Harris is engaging in prejudicial smearing, which is in philosophical terms and scholarly terms is called sophistry. It's very superficial. So dentists say that dentistry is true, but all we see is pain, and so there's so much pain in dentistry. How could dentistry be true? Dentistry is false because there's so much pain in it. Nazi doctors, Soviet doctors, and American Tuskegee doctors. What was my point here? How is this going to work here? You gotta have to twist your mind a little bit just to fit into this. Once you appreciate legitimate philosophical scholarship and reasoning. So my point was that Nazi doctors, is medicine true? Okay. So the argument would be, well, medicine, right? Medical science. Is medical science true? I mean, look at Nazi doctors, Soviet doctors, and American Tuskegee syphilis doctors. Which one are you going to choose for medical science? They're all a bunch of sadists. Medical science can't be true. Right? That's the reasoning. It's actually medical science, and amplifying examples like Nazi doctors to characterize all of medical science, and then psychotherapists treating combat veterans, for example, and rape survivors, for example. Is psychotherapy true? I mean, look at the pain that they cause combat veterans having to, in their suffering, they have to relive their suffering. What kind of legitimate thing is psychotherapy? It causes pain. Can't be true. They say it's true. Is it useful? Dentists say that they can fix teeth, but people still lose their teeth. People still keep having cavities. So how can it be useful? Right. So simply by exaggerating bad details within a certain area, you can create negative perspectives on everything. Medical science. Yeah, you had the Nazi doctors, the Soviet doctors, and you still have people getting sick all the time. What use? How is medical science useful? Right? And then, people, dentists, medical doctors, and therapeutic psychologists then attack atheism for being intolerant and for being elitist. As if they aren't elitist and cruel in their own attitudes. I mean, so you begin to see just by using these other contexts, which aren't have a slightly different, don't have the same mystique that religion sometimes can have, clearly popularly does have. What is religion, right? Many people ask, what is religion? What is God? There's certain issues that need to be and can be and have been modernized, but still in many traditional perspectives, there's this issue of, well, it's all about faith and mystery, and those are aspects that the church emphasizes in a way that has to do with their own, the real institutional issues, often problems, their historical nature, and their real ruts that they are in, and real ruts that they are in. So for somebody like me then, who has been an interfaith seeker, who was an interfaith seeker after being raised as an atheist humanist, and then became an interfaith Christian as a Unitarian Universalist, and I realized that that my search through Taoism, Chinese Taoism, the Chinese Tao, Buddhism, Asian Buddhism, with its origins in Hinduism and India, as well as yoga, some yoga, and martial arts like jiu-jitsu, kung fu a little bit, sampling these things, very much supported my own education in things like liberal arts, biological anthropology, and later my work experience, in which I studied therapeutic psychology and participated in eco-social justice activism and engaged in personal growth work. And then finally got my master's in international relations, doing social constructivism, focusing on social constructivism, ultimately identifying that as a very powerful approach based on human interaction, based on people's interactions as individuals, and how that creates social constructs. Very dynamically, very powerful perspective, building on stuff that I had seen already in biological anthropology years earlier. So that in terms of understanding religion, I was never attracted to the mainstream approaches to theology as a starting point. My starting point has been empirical theism, the fact that I felt good during meditation in studying basic principles like what? I might start with Buddhism, but in psychology, really. The fact that psychology, first psychotherapeutic, I guess I began with actually Taoism, right? With the Chinese Tao in high school. The Chinese Tao, so let me see where this is so far. Okay, stop here.